my name is Beckett and welcome back to the channel. Today in Division 2, I'm going to be walking you guys through the recalibration of all your exotics. How to do it, how to upgrade it if you have a lower level one, the most efficient, all the tips and tricks to make sure you can get those god rolls on your Lady Death, on your new Backfire, whatever it may be, whether it's a weapon, a piece of armor, we're going to go through all of that. But before we get started, if you enjoy the content, please hit that subscribe button. And if this video ended up helping you out, hit that like button. Now, what does reconfiguring an exotic actually do? Well, when we find the exotic that we want to reconfigure or recalibrate, what it does, it not only recalibrates all of our stats, but it will also bring the level up to 40. So if you're a returning player, you left before Warlords of New York and you're coming back, don't go deconstruct all your exotics and think, oh, I gotta farm this all out again. No, we'll be able to reconfigure it and upgrade it to level 40 and hopefully have some better stats, and it will have better base damage and all of that fun stuff. Now, the attributes of your exotics you refigure are going to have new stat values that are more appropriate for a higher level weapon. That's saying if you had a level 30 and you upgrade to level 40, of course, base damage and all that stuff's going to go up. Now, from what Massive has stated, all exotics, when we reconfigure or recalibrate, however you want to say it, they have a minimum stat value. So you can never get like a Lady Death to roll for 2% SMG damage. It's just not going to happen. But we do have a possibility of it rolling for a god roll. So when we reconfigure something, we don't have to be so worried, and we can actually be happy because we might get a max stat. I have a lot of exotics really close, and the ones that are actually god rolls are more like tank stuff that I don't even use, but that's okay. If I ever decide to use it, it's gonna be there. Now, when we finally decide to re-roll our exotic weapon or gear piece, whatever it may be, and it's already at our level, that is gonna get new stats and new attributes. Like numerically, it's still gonna stay the same. So if let's say it was armor regen, it's always gonna re-roll to armor regen. But if it was 1,000 armor regen this one time, it can re-roll from 1,000 to, wherever, to the whatever the max roll for that, where it may be. So if you already have a decent one rolled, I would not try reconfiguring that one. Let's say I had like a near god roll Lady Death and I couldn't help myself. I'm like, I want to take a chance. I'm like 0.5 crit chance off and it will be a god roll. So I decided to go there. I have like 10 or 12 exotic components, the stuff that I need to re-roll. And I re-roll and re-roll, and now I got a worse roll, and now I have no exotic components. I don't have any of the materials to re-roll. I have a worse weapon. I'm going to be doing less damage in PvP, or you take it in PvE, whatever it may be, and you kind of just mess yourself up. Instead of doing that, we are actually going to go out and we're going to farm a duplicate piece. So if it was a Lady Death, I would go out and just farm SMGs until I got a Lady Death to drop. And then we would re-roll that, or if that ended up being a better roll Lady Death than the one that I had, I would keep that and re-roll the first one until I got the desired effects that I was looking for. But before we can even go out in the open world and farm for those exotics, we have to actually own the blueprints in our crafting table before they will even drop for us. Now, every exotic we acquire in game, whether it was through our adventures throughout the world or just farming a boss non-stop, has a blueprint that goes with it, but we can't acquire the blueprint until we get the exotic through those certain means. There are a few differences. There's a couple of quest lines for exotics where we get the blueprint afterwards, but that's for another day. So once we acquire this exotic, we can go ahead to the crafting vendor inside the White House right next to our crafting table. I cannot pronounce her name for the life of me. It's Inua or something like that. And we'll be able to buy blueprints for her. Our weekly blueprints, if you still haven't got all your blueprints, are also sold there. They're just random. So if you already have them, it won't show up. But also the exotic ones. So once you pick up an exotic, you can just go talk to her. And I think it's like 5 or 10,000. And you can go and buy the blueprint. Now, once we have the blueprint, we can now recalibrate, reconfigure, whatever you want to call it. We can reconfigure our exotic. Although you need some regular crafting materials as well as one component for each time we reconfigure it. You can only get exotic components from deconstructing an exotic, which only yields 1 per exotic. So that means either all the exotics we need to go deconstruct, or we got to go out and farm some exotics, and we got to farm a lot. Unless we're really lucky and we just reconfigure once and we get a god roll, and I doubt that will happen. And if it does, I want you to come everywhere with me wherever I go from now on. And I would suggest at least 10 components. That's going to give us 10 times to be able to reconfigure something, and hopefully after 10 we should have enough, and if not, we can always go out and farm. But to farm 10 exotic components, that's going to take a few hours, so that will usually be my little break. I set a goal, I go for 10, whatever I'm doing, if it's farming, whatever I'm in game. It's nice to set a goal, kind of like a daily project, so I always like, oh, I'm going to do this day, or I'm going to farm for this chest piece this day, so I can always be doing something and enjoying myself in the game. Now that we know everything we need, and now we know where we need to go, we need to start farming for exotics, and we could just go out in the open world and exotics will eventually drop, and we'll get a few, and they'll trickle in, and we'll be able to recalibrate every once in a while, but that's not the most efficient and not the best way. The best way to do it is through targeted loot and missions. End bosses and heroic are probably the most efficient drop per hour, but legendary has a better chance of dropping exotics as well as better chance of max rolling gear. As for farming, what exotic should you be farming so you can get the most components? It's going to depend on what exotics you have in your inventory, and the best way you can do that is just go ahead to your blueprints under your weapon, under your crafting table, and you can kind of go through and see, oh, I have the most of this and most of this. For me, and this is just an example, so don't go and farm SMGs unless you have all 3 of them. There are 3 exotic SMGs in the game, and if I farm SMG targeted loot, let's say it was on Air and Space Museum, I'm going to farm that. I'll have a chance for that to drop every time I kill someone. Every time there's a drop, a yellow could turn into an exotic, and any end boss also has a chance to drop an exotic. So that's giving me double the chances. I have all those chances to drop throughout the mission, as well as there's a higher chance when you defeat the end boss an exotic will drop. That's why if you think about it and you go back, most of your exotics are probably from an end boss. Now, why would I want to farm for SMGs just because I have more exotic SMGs than I do, say, gloves? Because I only have 1 pair of exotic gloves, because I'm going to have 3 chances for the SMGs to drop, but I'm only have 1 chance for the gloves to drop. So every time a high end, it has a chance to turn into an exotic when it drops on the ground. I'd rather have 3 chances of it to turn into exotic than just 1. Also, the difficulty that you're playing on your global setting has a huge effect on exotic drop chances. Say if I was playing a mission on normal, I have a 1% of an exotic to drop. If I'm playing on hard, I have a 3%, challenging 5%, and a heroic 7%. I do not know what legendary is. I assume it's probably 9% or 10%. I'm not quite sure. I don't have that data, so I'm not going to say something. But what this tells us is basically if we are able to farm heroic activities, heroic checkpoints, heroic missions, anything heroic summit floors, if we can farm that efficiently, we have a pretty high chance of getting exotics to drop fairly often. Like probably 1 in every 2 or 3 missions, maybe even more. But it just depends, because if you are dying constantly in heroic and you're not making progress, if it's taking you 20-30 minutes to do 1 heroic, then you are better off until you're at the point where you can efficiently farm heroics. I would say 15 under 20 minutes is a good time to farm a heroic. Now once we've farmed out all the materials we need, we got all our exotic components, we got the duplicate of our exotic, so we can reconfigure that piece and not the piece that is decently rolled. But if it's just a bad roll, just re-roll that piece until it's better. And then we just head down to the reconfigure tab, and it is the bottom of each gear or weapon slot that you pick. So whatever, when you're going to the crafting, and let's say I went to backpacks, I would go all the way to the bottom, and then I would just choose, I would find my weapon or my backpack, whatever it may be, and I would just go through, hit craft, reconfigure, and just re-roll until I got the desired effect and I'm happy with the stats that I wanted. That's why I say always get like 5 to 10 so you can roll 5 or 10 times, and that's usually a good set, and you should be able to get something decent and something better than you had, unless you're just like near max roll, and at that point, man, you're kind of just pushing it. It's like I have 1 SMG. I think it's the new backfire. It's like 0.5 off. You know, I'm not going to mess with it. I'm not even going to try to re-rolling it. I'm not going to farm out another one. If another one drops God roll, great, but it's really, I'm not that much of a min-maxer, you know. So if this video helped you guys out, great, hit that like button, and I'll see you guys next time.